So as for the discussion here, so you should always use material instances rather than materials themselves. And the reason is because, first of all, parameterization. You can add parameters you want on your materials. It also improves performance of your materials significantly. It's a better organizational structure. You can do some dynamic adjustments with material instances. Like in the game, it's really easy to switch parameters. If you want your character to turn green at runtime because he's been poisoned, you can do that. And of course, there's memory savings because duplicated stuff is never good. And as for lighting your character, as you can see later in this video, once your character is set up with the textures and material instance, you want to see how it looks. But where? Well, you should create a level where you have the same lighting every time, and then you can compare your character to other characters or building and how it all looks together. It's very important because then you get consistency across different environments and there's less room for errors with different parameters. You'll see soon what I'm talking about. Okay, so I would like to show you here how in my project I have set up material instances. So for example, if we go to characters folder, you will now see that I have this like master material in there, and it's called master character master. So if you go into this material, you will see that it has all kinds of connections there. It's pretty simple, but it has some parameters. So like all those are parameters. So whenever you have like a texture sample, which is like, the thing that you use to read your texture, you can just right click and you can convert to parameter, and then that becomes a parameter for your material, which doesn't really make a difference until you use instance. And then you can also create a scalar parameter, which allows you to create a value from 0 to 1 or whatever float. So that's useful. You can just rename them here. Another thing that you might want to do is create like a vector parameter, and that one is like a color. So you can also do that. So I did all that and I set it all up in the ways I wanted for my characters. Could be organized better, but that's what it is. And then now, if I want to create a material for a character, all I have to do is right click on this master and then just create material instance. And then I'm just going to name it MI Lich, because this is something, for example, for my Lich character. So that way I'm using instances instead of actual materials. And I'll show you in a second how to set it up for the Lich. I also have the same situation for my buildings, because this game also has buildings in it. And so like there's a building master material, and that allows me to create those different buildings with some kind of an illusion of 3D. It's actually really simple right now, but how it's going to work is if you go and see the actual building, which lives in Blueprint's world, you will see that those buildings are actually 2D images which are extruded into 3D, which gives them this kind of 3D look. That allows me to save a lot of resources without having to model all those buildings. All right, guys, so that's that. Now let's get into it. All right, guys, so I did some updates to the Lich character because he looked kind of bad. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to re-import my so as you can see, that was his skeletal mesh before, and it looked really crappy. So I'm just gonna re-import with the new one, which looks much better. Characters, Lich, export. I'm just gonna re-import with this one, which basically is okay. So if that happens, that means that there's a discrepancy in material names. Reset to FBX in that case. And now we're going to have all kinds of problems with the material. So as you can see, I added a little bit of a skeletal armor here and tweaked his hands and stuff. Also changed the textures drastically. So we need to somehow update all the textures. So like the first thing I'm going to update is the diffuse map. So I'm just going to import with a new file. And in this case, I have my textures, and this is the base color texture, which right now will look much different than before, as you can see. There's still some errors here on that chest for some reason. I think the normal map also needs to be updated. New file, import with the normal. So we have that. Then the next thing I want to do is, I'm not sure if there's an occlusion texture there. There is an occlusion texture there. So that occlusion texture is no longer relevant. I'm just gonna have to delete it. Force delete, and then what we also have a new texture is occlusion roughness metallic. So this one I'm gonna name T-lich ORM, and then save all. And now you will see that he looks much better, but he still doesn't have the occlusion roughness and metallic sorted out. So this is something we need to do. And normally how I do this, I'll go to the material and I hook it up there. So he has the occlusion roughness metallic a white color. That's not good. So I'm just gonna use the ORM from the texturing software. Now I'm gonna disable all that because I don't know exactly what multipliers are there. I don't want ambient occlusion override as well. And that looks good to me. Now I can kind of play with them to see how to make him look good. Like right now, he's definitely way too shiny, and I would also like to see the whole thing. So how I usually test it is I open the level where I have my lighting set up, like in the battle scenes in the game. So I'll just go to that level, which in this case is called level lighting test. And in there I have all those characters loaded. So I don't want to see all of them. I only want to see the lich. So the lich is here. And I don't really need to see the battle hexagons at this stage. So here we go. So here's where we have him. That's how he looks. If I press G, I'm gonna get the game view, so I will see how it looks exactly in game. So he's looking okay, just a little bit too shiny, maybe. Let's see if we can play with the metallic and roughness and get it to the place where we're happy. So if I go ahead here into his material, I can open his material instance and drag it into here. And I can start playing with that. So like metallic multiplier. So like what if I do 1 for metallic? So that makes him much darker. So that's not really helping us. There's the roughness, add, and roughness multiplier. So the roughness usually needs to be multiplied because by default it's super rough. But if you multiply it by 2, it's going to be quite shiny. By 4, it's going to be less shiny. Now metallic, usually in physical materials, you don't get anything different than 0 or 1 for metallic. But in this case, it's all about artistic feel of it. So you kind of have to balance this roughness multiplier with the metallic feel. And I feel like it's too dark right now. So maybe 0.7 of this. And then here I have to choose the right value, how shiny I want him to be. Those gloves, they don't look good, unfortunately. Kind of metallic, too metallic. I could just go and actually look like some kind of scale, which it was supposed to be armor, but it doesn't really translate. Let's see. Yeah, that doesn't look too good, unfortunately. I might need to revisit that one. 0.7, let's see, 5. Yeah, maybe that's not too bad. I mean, we're only seeing this character from a big distance like this. So like when we see him like this, it's gonna be just fine. Okay, I feel like this is pretty much a decent situation to be in. We could add some color or tint, but in this case, I don't really feel like there's a need for that. Okay, guys, let's just end here with this one. And let's see him in the game when we're actually playing him. Let's see how it feels when he walks and shoots and casts spells.